Okay, my lovely audience, today I am going to read this classic fairy tale Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So let's get started. In a far off castle, there lived a queen. Her wish was to have a little baby girl. In the absence of a child, there was an atmosphere of loneliness and stillness. After some time, she was blessed with a child. As the Almighty granted her wish, the little princess was very beautiful. The baby was named Snow White because that day the ground was covered with pure white snow. The royal family's happiness could not last for long. The princess was quite young when the queen died. The king was very sad. He remarried after a few years. The second queen was quite beautiful. Still, unless the magic mirror assured her that she was the most beautiful lady in the land, she was not satisfied. As Snow White grew young, she turned out even lovelier. The queen grew jealous of her. One day, the queen was standing before the magic mirror. That day, she was informed that Snow White was the fairest lady in the land. Jealousy overpowered the queen's mind. She ordered her servant to take away Snow White into the woods and kill her. The servant was kind. He could not kill the princess. On the contrary, he asked her to run away into the forest and find out a new place to live. In the forest, Snow White was alone. She was frightened. At night, she fell asleep. She was awakened by the chirping of birds as well as by the rays of the sun. She got up and walked through the thick forest looking for help from any quarter. At last, she saw a small house. The little house was strange. It was small enough to be a child's playhouse. Snow White went inside the house. She did not find anybody there. There was a table set with 7 plates. Snow White dusted and cleaned the house. She washed the dishes and set the table neatly. With whatever food she found in the kitchen, she prepared a delicious dinner. It was a long day for Snow White. She felt tired and slept over there. In the evening, when it was dark, the 7 dwarfs who had gone to the forest returned home. They worked in a nearby mine digging for jewels during the day. They were astonished to find the lights on in the house. They were also amazed by the smell of cooked food in the kitchen. With care and caution, they entered the house where they found Snow White. Asleep, she occupied 3 of their beds. They were wonderstruck on seeing her. They stood around her. They admired her beauty very much. When Snow White woke up, she was not frightened to see the tiny and amusing men. They appeared friendly and happy. They were very much pleased to notice the cleanliness in the house. They were equally impressed with the tasty food which she had cooked for them. They asked her to stay with them. Thus, Snow White stayed over there. She cooked food for the dwarfs. She also stitched their clothes. They had a good time. Often in the evenings, they sang together, but this joy did not last for long. With the help of the magic mirror, the queen was able to know that Princess Snow White was alive. She could not bear that. She thought of a novel way to finish the life of the princess so that only she could be the fairest person in the land. In the guise of a beggar, the queen visited the little house of the dwarfs, where Snow White lived. There on the doorstep, she gave her a beautiful red apple. No sooner did Snow White had a bite of the apple, she went into coma. It appeared that she had died. The queen was convinced that Snow White had died. Fearing that her evil deed would be found out, the queen took to her heels. Soon it grew dark in the forest. In a hurry, she fell down from a mountain, and that was the end of her. Soon after, the seven dwarfs returned home. They noticed that Snow White was motionless. They thought that she was dead. They cried in grief. They built a beautiful crystal coffin for Snow White. They placed her body inside the box and kept the coffin in the clearing near the house. They watched her all the time during the day and night. As good luck would have it, that day a prince from a neighboring kingdom rode by that place. He stopped to admire Snow White's beauty. The prince was informed about Snow White by the seven dwarfs. The prince fell in love with the beautiful princess. He lifted the crystal cover and kissed her forehead. Soon, there was a miracle. Snow White woke up from her deep sleep. She smiled and stepped out of the coffin to welcome the prince. That made the seven dwarfs happy once again. They danced with great joy. They understood that the prince and Snow White had fallen in love and they wished to marry. Dwarfs were aware that they would miss Snow White after her marriage. However, she promised to visit them quite often. Being overjoyed, the dwarfs bid farewell to Snow White and the prince. They were seen riding together towards the palace of the prince. They got married there. They lived happily thereafter. The end. Hey, my lovely audience, I hope you really enjoyed reading this classic fairy tale Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs along with me. Do tell me in comment section which book should I read next, and don't forget to subscribe my channel Read Aloud Kids for more fun and interesting videos daily. Thank you. Bye bye. See you tomorrow.